Charles Leclerc is currently suffering through one of the worst bad streaks of results in his entire Ferrari career. Despite sitting in third position in the Drivers' Championship, he's been outscored by Haas driver Nico Hulkenberg over the past 4 races. We all thought the Monaco curse was that Charles would never win his home race. Perhaps it was actually that after winning his home race, he'd be cursed by terrible Ferrari cars for the rest of his career. He is not happy about how his recent races have gone and is holding emergency talks with the team to try and find a solution. Today, I'll check out what Leclerc has to say about his awful results since Monaco, why it's gone so wrong for him, and what Ferrari intends to do about it. So, don't go anywhere. At the Monaco Grand Prix back in May, Charles Leclerc and his Scuderia Ferrari team celebrated a fantastic victory in the most prestigious race of the year, one that exercised a few ghosts for Leclerc after a run of misfortune at his home race. He was the first Monegasque to win in the Principality since 1931, and the podium celebrations with the royal family proved just how much it meant to the whole country. It was Leclerc's first win since his failed title challenge in 2022. That year, strategy mistakes, driving mistakes, and development mistakes became the holy trinity of Leclerc's downfall. That season, it seemed like the divine was set against him winning. This year, that same trinity is plaguing him all over again. After finishing a dismal 14th in the British Grand Prix, Charles Leclerc described his life since that win in Monaco. It's been 4 races that have been worse than a nightmare. A terrible decision to switch to intermediate tyres far too early after missing out on Q3 at the British Grand Prix made for a particularly miserable weekend. Early contact with Oscar Piastri in Austria ruined his race, resulting in an 11th place finish. After that race, he said there were no positives to take from the race. A 5th place finish in Spain was fine, though the upgraded Mercedes was clearly a quicker car. Canada was particularly terrible though, with neither Ferrari making Q3. During the race, a combination of engine issues, having to restart his car during a pit stop, and terrible strategy choices in changeable conditions led to him throwing in the towel on lap 43 of 70. It has not been a good run of races by any measure. After last weekend's race at Silverstone, Leclerc reflected on his terrible run of results, admitting that he hopes to find a way back to form sooner rather than later. "It's very hard," he said. "I mean, I don't really have the words to explain it. It's been 4 races that it's been worse than a nightmare, so I hope we can come back soon. It's very difficult to pick up positives on days like this. I just want to go back with the team, that we analyse the way we're making those decisions on my side and why we were on the wrong side today. Ferrari have made some massive mistakes and Leclerc is right to be angry with how their season has progressed, but he isn't faultless in this. The terrible run of results is alarming. The fact he still holds 3rd place in the Drivers' Championship just shows how strong his results were up until the Canadian Grand Prix. 5 podiums in 9 races, including that win in Monaco, was a solid start to the season. Something has clearly changed. Ferrari haven't just been outdeveloped by their rivals, the car has actively been made worse. Ferrari boss Fred Vasseur explained the reasons behind Leclerc's struggles at Silverstone. He was driving with an unfamiliar car setup in difficult conditions, in a Ferrari that is proving not easy to handle as it stands. "We have to avoid to draw a generic conclusion on what's happened. We need to have a deep look on everything," Vasseur said. "I think the car, the last 2 races, was at least not easy to drive, and it was asking a lot to the drivers, mainly for Saturday, that Charles had the new package on Friday. He has to jump into the car and do the FP3 with the wet, and he had to go in quali with a car that he didn't drive before." It should be noted at this point that the new package that Fred is talking about isn't actually an upgrade. Ferrari reverted to their Imola spec car for the Silverstone Grand Prix. It is a car that Leclerc has driven before, he's even won a race in that car, so Vasseur isn't telling the entire truth. Fred went on to say that the mistake of bringing Leclerc in early for intermediates at Silverstone was a knock-on effect of the poor qualifying performance. The team was trying to compensate, but in doing so cost themselves a points finish. The decision to revert to an old spec of car has obviously had a massive impact on performance. Carlos Sainz says Ferrari has lost 2 or 3 months of Formula 1 car development by making that decision. The Imola spec was run until Spain, but since then, Mercedes, McLaren, and even Haas have brought huge upgrade packages, which have given them loads of performance. Red Bull have not improved much during that time, but they held a performance advantage over Ferrari before the Spain upgrades anyway. Ferrari's upgrades in Barcelona, which included a revamped floor, exasperated the SF24's bouncing issues through high-speed corners, as Sainz and Charles Leclerc struggled for performance and comfort in Spain and Austria. That led to experiments in Friday practice at Silverstone, with Sainz and Leclerc splitting packages to perform a back-to-back test and get on top of the issue. In the end, Ferrari decided it was better off rolling back the car to its Imola spec, which made the car more drivable through Silverstone's high-speed turns. It is clearly not good enough, Sainz acknowledged. We have basically the same car as in Imola, and since Imola, everything has upgraded, probably adding 2/10 to the car, and we have had to revert. We have lost 2 or 3 months of performance gain in the wind tunnel, or performance we could have added in these 3 months, so clearly we haven't taken the right calls recently. I feel like today was at least back to basics, back to a car which was in Imola, and we just need to upgrade it from here. But it is clear that our rivals are a good step ahead of us. While Carlos admits that things have not gone well for Ferrari in recent races, he has at least made the most of the situation they're in. In Austria, he outqualified his teammate for both races and managed to get a podium thanks to Norris and Verstappen's crash. In Silverstone, he outqualified his teammate again and then made the right decisions during the race to secure a points finish, even if he was over 30 seconds adrift of the car in front of him. So Ferrari should take some of the blame for Leclerc's poor results, but it takes 2 to tango. Ferrari's decision to revert to an old spec of car is particularly shocking during the cost cap era. Teams can't just spend their way out of a performance deficit. Ferrari have committed money and time to these upgrades, and if they're just going to take them off and discard them, then they will never be able to come back from that. They have to find a way to make these upgrades work. They are far from the first team to find bouncing issues on their car this season. Mercedes have suffered from them, but they found a way to work them out with suspension changes, rather than reverting to older specs. Ferrari need to refit these upgrades and make them work. Otherwise, they're going to be stuck in the midfield for the rest of the season. Worse than that, they're at risk of being overtaken by a Haas team who have made leaps and bounds in terms of performance with every upgrade this season. Mercedes losing to their customer McLaren is one thing, but for Ferrari to lose out to Sauber or Haas is something very different. The frustration for the team is that for at least the past year, Ferrari upgrades have got the job done. The last 16 months now, all the upgrades that we bought had a very good correlation with what we did in the wind tunnel, said Fred Vasseur. I think one of the assets of the team over the last year was to bring some small upgrades, and each time it was paying off. This one we had an issue, but it's not because we had an issue once it's the end of the world. Things might not be as bad as they seem for Ferrari though. They are bad, but potentially not as season-ending as they might seem. The next race in Hungary is actually a relatively slow track with a lot of low-speed sections, meaning the new package from Spain might be faster than the Imola one they reverted to at Silverstone. A dry race with the new package will give them plenty of data to try and work out what has gone wrong and find a solution within the car setup. If they can do that, then they can bounce back in Spain and compete for podiums again. Of course, if they can't find any answers in Hungary, then the high-speed circuit through the Ardennes forest will be an absolute nightmare for Sainz and Leclerc. Driving a bouncing F1 car through Eau Rouge and Radillon at the best part of 300 km an hour isn't an experience any driver wants. What do you think of Ferrari's upgrade mistakes? And should Charles Leclerc be doing more in spite of a poorly performing car? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.